Good evening, everyone. My name is Randall Phelps, and I will be facilitating this discussion this evening. And you may address me just simply as Randall. We will conduct this in an orderly, civil manner with the goal of being able to inform you. And if you are not yet muted, please mute. Stephen, maybe you can help me get folks muted just so we don't have background noise. So the goal is to inform you and answer your questions about the specific application on file with the City of Arvada. I am hopeful that you can view on video and connect and be able to share this, see the shared screen. I'm going to see if I can. Nope, can't do that. Okay, we'll move on from that. So let me take a moment to introduce the folks that have joined me from our project team. I'll just run through real quick so that if they do speak, you'll recognize who they are. So we have Jill Marcotte and Matt Boone with the applicant. We have Charlie Smith, who is counsel to the applicant. We have Jeremiah Bebo, who is our City of Arvada planner. We also have our traffic engineer and architect on, and we'll introduce them as needed. And again, my name is Randall Phelps with Kimley Horn. Now, we've organized this presentation so that we can get through some material, and then I will stop at several different intervals to open up for questions. So when it comes to that time, what I'd like for you to do, if you have the ability on the Teams app, there's a little hand button. You would just click that and raise your hand. And if you're not able to do that, unmute and just introduce yourself, and I'll try to catch your name and go through your question one at a time. Once you put your hand up, if you can also make sure you're unmuted and sharing your video, if at all possible, and then wait for my cue to call on you to speak. When you do speak, please make sure to introduce yourself and state your address. And as I said, we will conduct this in as orderly a manner as possible. So I'd ask that you remain muted to limit distractions and background noise. And hopefully we don't have to, apply the mute all button to everything. Additionally, please limit your comments to this particular application and be as concise as possible. This meeting is being recorded, and with that, if you have any questions or concerns about how we're going to run this meeting, feel free to raise your hand and come off of mute, and I'd like to answer them now. So I'll give everybody just a moment to do that if you have questions about how we're going to run this meeting. Are there any concerns at this time? All right. Seeing and hearing none, I'd like to begin the presentation now with a few opening comments from Jeremiah Bebo, our City of Arvada planner. Jeremiah?
All right. Thanks everyone for attending today. Is my camera working?
Don't see it yet.
Okay, well, in any case, thanks everyone for attending tonight. As Randall said, my name's Jeremiah Bebo. I'm the city planner from the City of Arvada, assigned to these two projects. So tonight at the meeting, we're discussing two separate land use applications that we've received. The first one is called Project Indiana, which involves the annexation and rezoning of multiple privately owned parcels currently located within Jefferson County, and rezoning them to City of Arvada industrial light zoning. Also included with this application is a proposed rezoning of 3 parcels that are currently within the city and are zoned as commercial. And this application seeks to rezone them to the light industrial zoning as well. As Randall and the rest of the team will talk about later, the Arvada Comprehensive Plan does include these parcels that are located in the county as seeing them as one-day annexing into the city, and does designate these sites to be either light industrial, office, or commercial uses. The second application is regarding the annexation and rezoning of Maple Valley Park, which is just north adjacent to the Project Indiana site. The park, it is owned by the city, but it is actually located within unincorporated Jefferson County. And with this annexation application, a rezoning would accompany it, and the rezoning request would be to the City of Arvada's open space zoning district, which is used for all parks and open space in Arvada. The application is separate from Project Indiana, and the park will not have any part of it developed on and will remain owned by the public. Tonight's neighborhood meeting, it's a requirement for any annexation and or rezoning application. Both the city and the developer use the meetings to engage with the neighbors in order to understand general concerns and gather feedback in order to help make development more compatible. After this neighbor meeting tonight, the city will continue to review both of these applications until the documents and plans are ready to go through the public hearing process. These projects will both require public hearings in front of both the Planning Commission and the City Council, and public noticing will be provided on these, similarly to what was provided for the neighborhood meeting. Lastly, the annexation and rezoning applications for Project Indiana are approved by the City Council. Then the developers team will be required to have a site plan package reviewed and approved prior to any construction. During the review of the site plan is where the city will review their development plans, documents, and reports to ensure adherence to all development-related regulations. In which case, the review of the site plan is administrative. No public hearings required for the site plan application. So from the city's perspective, this is where we're at right now, and that's the process in a nutshell. I'm here along with several other city staff members, including civil engineer and a traffic engineer that'll be present at the end for any questions that you might have for the city.
Randall, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. Here we have the Arvada Comprehensive Plan pulled up. This is a plan that the city uses to make sure that the uses associated with land throughout the city are intentionally planned out. And so I will zoom into, I'll note here now, this next page, where the site is located. So big black circle right there. This is the discussion area for tonight, generally located east of Indiana and just north of 64th Avenue. And I'm going to zoom into that area. Again, same circle. The area that we are talking about is where my pointer is. This is a mix of red and purple and red land uses within this commercial zoning area. Industrial use is one of the uses that's applicable to these various color shadings.
Randall, this is
Go ahead, Joe.
sorry. We're unable to see your screen right now. I think a couple of participants were raising their hand, and I would suspect that was the comment. So I just wanted to stop you before you got too far ahead.
I'm going to stop sharing screen and then reshare and see if that fixes things. How is that?
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to back up. Okay. Everybody see our starting screen and our neighborhood outline?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Here's our comprehensive plan. Zooming into the site at 64th and Indiana, we have this view here. And now I'm tracking with you. Yeah, something got sort of frozen there. Thank you for that. That would not have been good. Anyway, again, this area in red and purple stripes and solid red is generally the area we're talking about. Some combination of commercial type uses are anticipated by the city in this area. I'm going to move to an aerial slide. This is our project location, and the blue lines are simply the parcel boundaries as recorded, different property owners and different parcels. The only parcel that's not part of this application tonight is this one in yellow. That one will remain in the county. That is not part of the annexation application. Maple Valley Park is on the north, and then all of the rest of the parcels are part of the overall application, and we'll get into some details so you can see how each of those is referenced. This is an aerial from September of this year, indicating the brand new development that just occurred on 67th Avenue here. That is a light industrial building, similar to what we are going to propose. We have recent photos of the area. So if anybody has specific questions about an area, we can zoom into those. These are not meant to go through in detail. We figure that of all the people that would be viewing this presentation, you folks on this will have a pretty good sense of what your community looks like. Next, we have, this is a snapshot from Jefferson County. This is their county boundary map. This indicates in tan the properties that are currently part of Jefferson County that are not annexed into Arvada. So in order for them to develop as an Arvada project, these parcels would need to be included in the annexation and have been. There are a whole series of criteria for annexation. 1/6 of the perimeter and about 12 or 15 other criteria. We've submitted those to the city and gotten confirmation that our application concurs with the requirements. Don't need to bore you with all of those details. I'll move to specific areas of annexation. The first is Maple Park. This area in green, currently owned by the city, but not previously annexed into the city, is a part of this on behalf of, we are processing it on behalf of the city. at their request to run alongside of this for efficiency. That would be zoned open space in the initial zoning as a part of the annexation. Next, we have in pink with the black boundary. This would be the boundary of the parcels that would be annexed into the city from the county. This would be everything that we saw in tan on the previous slide. So from a comprehensive plan standpoint, it references the appropriate land use zoning districts within the industrial and office component, which is that those purple and red color shadings on the comp plan. And I've highlighted here the light industrial zoning district IL for industrial light. Next is a whole list of uses that you can have within IL, and this is very small. Within that is the use light industrial, and then there's lots of other things you can do in it. But just highlighting the light industrial portion within that. This is an area zoning map. So I'll take a moment here and just orient you. So again, subject property right in the middle. The dashed line basically represents the area that is not within the city. To the west is an industrial general zone, which is a heavier zone district. To the east, and that's on the west side of Indiana. On the east side of the property is industrial light. Also adjacent north of 67th is industrial light, as well as on the east side of Fig. And then south of the site and the one parcel that fits sort of in the middle of it is commercial general, also consistent with an industrial, a light industrial use. Well, let me take that back. We will be rezoning this commercial general to industrial light to be in conformance with the rest of the property as industrial light. When we're ultimately done with the zoning process, including those parcels for rezoning, we will have an IL zone here in light purple surrounded in red, which you can see goes along with all the other light industrial in the immediate vicinity surrounding it east and west. And then the open space zone for Maple Valley Park to the north in the dark green surrounded in black. That would be the resultant zoning upon completion of these processes. So this next slide is a slide that captures sort of everything that we've touched on to this point through our annexation maps that we've submitted, and I'll go through them with you now. So the first is the open space annexation on the north in green. That is the exact legal boundary of the property that is being annexed into Arvada for the park. Next, we have the blue area. This blue area is being annexed in from the county, as well as initial zoned to IL. We then have along the west side these orange parcels and south side orange parcels that will be rezoned from commercial general to IL. And then lastly, there are 4 lots in purple here. These are already zoned IL. They will be part of the ultimate project, but they are not part of the case before you tonight, these are already zoned and annexed into the city to meet all the criteria. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm ready to open up for questions and so forth. So let me go through a couple of things here. I'm happy to scroll back on to any of the previous maps. If you have a question, if you would raise your hand, unmute, and if at all possible, again, turn on your video, state your name and address, and then you can, and I'll call on you and we will see if we can take any questions you might have. I will pause there for a moment. Are there any questions about what we've covered so far? Okay, we have a question from Rod. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
I think so. Yes, we can.
What happens with the property at 6980 Indiana, directly north of your north boundary? There it is right there.
Thank you for that question. Oh, crazy background noise. Can we figure out where that's coming from? Yeah, maybe. Apparently, I'm echoing back through everybody's speakers. Sorry. So the insulation and fire stopping property to the north there that Rod just asked about, that is not part of this development at all, and so that will remain in the county. Rod, does that answer your question before we go on to John? If so, you can lower your hand and you're muted. All right, let's go on to John, if you can unmute.
Hi, I think I'm on John's computer, but this is Jennifer, actually.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer.
I just wondered, the Maple, are you calling it the Maple Valley Park up there in the green, right?
That is correct.
Is that boundary that you have on the map where there's going to be no project work, is that where that existing fence line is right now?
So there's an existing fence line between the blue and the green. And if that's what you're referring to, yeah, that is what would remain there.
Okay, thank you.
Everything in green is owned by the city of Arvada at this time. All right. Let's see, Jim.
This is Meg talking for Jim, and I live at 14486 West 68th Place, and wanted to know the nature of what kind of light industrial we might have.
Great question. We'll actually cover that in just a couple of minutes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very well. Let's see. Do we have a Mary, Michael Hoffman? Let's go with Mary first.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my question is about traffic on is there any plan? I know a long time ago there seemed to be a plan to finish Eldridge all the way through from 72nd to 64th. And will they continue to do that, or are we going to just have increased traffic, including semi-trucks, back on that other road, which I can't see, I don't know what the name of that road is, but what is the plan for traffic?
So Mary, I'll cover a portion of that question in our presentation, and then maybe the city, once we cover that, the city can also discuss Eldridge kind of in a broader sense here in a couple of minutes. Can you hold on for that?
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right, let's see. Do I still have one more hand up? Oh, okay, Michael Hoffman or Michelle Hoffman?
Yes, Michelle.
Thank you.
I just have a question about the green and Maple Valley Park. Is there any plans to change any of that or just leave it as it is for now?
That's a great question. Jeremiah, do you have anybody that can answer that particular question?
Yeah. So, kind of as it relates to this project, no. Really, this is kind of just more so the legal process for annexing that park into the city. I know kind of separate from what we're reviewing tonight, our Parks Department is working with the, they're not called Urban Drainage and Flood Control anymore, but Urban Drainage and Flood Control on some improvements to the creek. I know they have some issues with floodplain there. But other than that, no, not that I'm aware of, aside from those floodplain improvements that are kind of separate from this project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions that we can answer now before we get into the site plan portion? All right, seeing no hands, I think that worked quite well. Thank you all for that. All right, so this is back to the comp plan just for reference. I'll cover a couple of quick things. Jeremiah covered these already, but I'll touch base on them again. This submittal was made October 22nd to the city. You've got neighborhood notices that went out a couple weeks ago. We've got the neighborhood meeting tonight. The city will do their detailed review of this process, and then when they deem it complete, it will be heard by the Planning Commission and City Council. That will be noticed at that time. We do anticipate some limited land clearing property stabilization efforts to occur before those hearing dates, but no significant project construction will commence until the city council meeting or until we have specific permits from the city of Arvada. I will move on now. So we've covered everything in blue, the overview, the specific applications. Now we're prepared to talk a little bit about the project. Couple of key things here with this discussion as we go forward. We are very early in conceptualizing the use, and we still have a lot of work to do, both internally in preparation for the plans, for the tenant, and then ultimately with the city. So while we may show you some things today, recognize that they're very preliminary in nature, and that the site plan application is not yet in process with the city. We've had a few conversations with the city and working through some things, but just recognize that everything we discuss here is general in nature of what could be developed on this property. And as we go forward, we can share with you what we have today and answer any questions. So this is the site plan that we are proposing. In this particular case, we've got a fairly small building with a limited number of truck dock spaces in the east side of the building, all internal to the center of the site facing industrial. Paid particular attention to the orientation of this. There is an office component of this building, faces the west side towards Indiana Street. We have car parking and some van parking to the south of the building. We also have a parking lot on the north side of the building, and then we have a loading area on the north side of the building that would provide access between vehicles and goods. I'm going to move on to the next slide. A couple things. One of the things that we did, so we've got some connectivity through the site from 64th. This is a private drive that just makes connections so that vehicles aren't forced in any one particular direction, but provide an overall access to the street network. And on the north side of the site, we have a stormwater detention pond that will collect and treat stormwater before it discharges into Ralston Creek, so that we don't cause any further degradation of that channel due to this project. Also, the one property that I had highlighted in yellow that is still remaining in the county that's not colored on this map, this red road here is its driveway. In working out with the owner, we originally identified a driveway in this location a little further north. That was in the original application. We've since revised it to come up a little closer and tighter to the project and around over to Fig Street per their request for access. Let me see if I covered all my notes here. All right, so this next, we'll stop and I'll get some of those questions answered that were discussed before, at least partially relative to the site. And then when we finish the site discussion, we can talk extension of Eldridge and so forth. So on this map, we've got three colors. We've got some pink dots, which provide some basic connectivity to the local street network. Those are just regular drive cuts with a small amount of traffic connecting to a public road somewhere within the perimeter of the site. I'm going to focus you on the trucks on the south side of the site. So like I mentioned, the truck docks are on the east side of the building. They would access the site off of Indiana down 66th Place, turn left onto Holman Street, and end. Currently this street just ends. We would put in a proper cul-de-sac and terminate the public roadway there. And then from there on, they would take a short drive into the truck court on the east side of the building at this red dot. And that red dot represents where the trucks would enter and egress in and out of the site. So all of the heavy truck traffic, large semi trucks would have a direct access off of Indiana and not interact with 67th Avenue or Fig Street or anything to the east or south of that. Next, we have the blue dot. So I'll tell you go into a little bit of detail. So this dot is at 68th Avenue on the west side. Again, east of Indiana, this alignment would be a private drive. It would be the primary exit route for any of the site activities to exit out onto Indiana and either go north on Indiana or south on Indiana. The other component to this, as a part of this project, we will be constructing a total of 3 northbound lanes on Indiana along the project frontage. 2 of them will be through lanes, and the furthest right lane will be a right turn acceleration deceleration lane, into and out of this site. So you'll go from 1 lane currently northbound to 2 lanes northbound. So that should provide a reduction in traffic congestion and so forth through this stretch from 66th to 68th. And then in coordination with the city, we are proposing that a new traffic signal light go at 68th Avenue, which is the midpoint spacing between 72nd and 64th, which is the ideal location for both CDOT and the city to identify a signal. This is also where the Jeffco buses will enter and exit onto Indiana Street, providing them a safer, more controlled access point, aligning at that blue dot. And again, we are estimating at least 85% of our traffic as generated by this site will exit out onto Indiana at that point. And again, minimize any interaction with some of the other smaller streets to the south and east of the site. A couple of pictures of some possible building configurations that we would propose here. This would generally be a 40-foot tall, 42-foot tall precast concrete building. On the east side would be the docks. On the west side, facing Indiana, would be the office, street glazing, storefront type uses. I'll go to a couple of perspectives here. This is what a building might look like in this area. This top view is facing Indiana. This bottom view is generally looking southeast from Indiana into the site. This top view is the east side of the building, so facing west towards the mountains. This would be the dock area for the building. And then this last perspective is somewhat elevated view from west of Indiana, looking at the storefront glass glazing office area associated with the building facing Indiana. With that, I come back to the annexation as our primary applications. Obviously, the site plan and its concept we've shared here. Let's answer the question on Eldridge, and I'm going to flip over to a Google Map aerial. So the question is in regards to the completion of Eldridge from basically 67th south to 66th. Who at the city can answer to that particular question?
I can talk about it kind of high level, Randall. So it's a really good question. So just to give you some back history on the industrial center, we had an amended development agreement that we came to with the master developer of the Parkway Center Industrial Park. And in that agreement, we agreed that as each of these individual lots in the Parkway Center developed, each developer of those individual lots would have a specific road impact fee that they would have to pay to the city. And the city would collect those fees as each of those lots come in. And then once all of those lots have developed, the city will then be responsible for the remaining portion of whatever the cost is to construct Eldridge. So I guess to get the crux of the question, Eldridge Street more than likely will not be built out. until each of those industrial lots has been developed, and we've obtained the money from those developers on those lots. And then, like I said, the city will kind of be on the hook to provide the remaining funds for the construction of Eldridge.
Good. Thank you, Jeremiah. All right. Ms. Maley.
Oh, and can I add, let me just add
Yes.
one more thing. Sorry, I forgot. And so with this project, it does not the annexation piece, but the site plan portion and construction does include, those 4 lots shown in purple, which are included in that agreement. So this developer will be required to pay each of those lots proportionate share towards the future construction of Eldridge Street.
All right, we've got a question here. Ms. Maley. See if we can unmute you. There we go.
Unmuted. Hi. First of all, I wanted to thank you for this presentation. I really appreciate it. But I wanted to ask, it sounds like you've got a fair idea of the building, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any ideas about what kind of hours of operation this facility might have?
Yeah, we can certainly speak to that. Jill, did you want to take that?
Sure. This is Jill Marcotte. I'm glad to speak to that. It would serve as a delivery station for a client of ours who would require 24-hour, 7 days a week operations. And I can elaborate a little bit on how the site will function relative to the concept site plan that Randall just returned to on the screen. The truck traffic that's generated by the facility is relatively light. As Randall indicated, there's 15 dock positions shown on the east side of the building. And it's anticipated there would be 21 line haul or trucks entering and exiting the facility per day, and relatively light truck traffic overall. And that will be routed in and out of the facility via that ingress egress off of Holman Street. So that is to keep it segregated from the rest of the project. And then those trucks will generally enter and exit the facility sometime between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So during off-peak hours. And then just to describe in general the rest of the facility, how it would function, those semis would have packages in them. They'll get unloaded at those dock doors, sorted inside of the building, and then staged for dispatch. So that activity is occurring only inside the building. And again, that's also during off-peak hours. So generally like 2 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. or 12:30 p.m., sorry. Dispatchers would come in and work in 2 shifts, and their job is to help with the delivery operations. So they'll come in the early morning, work till mid-afternoon, and then the second shift would come in and work till late in the evening. And the delivery associates then come early in the morning, sometime around 9:20, 9:30 timeframe, to pick up delivery vans. And then they are going to the loading area of the facility on the north side of the building. And again, during non-peak hours, generally between 9:30 and 11:30 a.m., those vans are loaded and then dispatched to their local delivery routes in incremental flows, so that they're not, clogging the adjacent roadways, and to mitigate the impact of peak rush hours. They make their local delivery routes. They come back several hours later in the evening, sometime between 7 and 9:30 p.m. And those vans are then parked in their returned van spots. And then those van drivers would then leave in their personal vehicles. So that kind of gives you sort of a 24-hour snapshot of how the facility would function, and hopefully gives you a little bit more context to this site plan.
Any further questions from you specific to that operation?
Can I ask one more question?
Certainly.
So it looks like you've got a client. That's great and all that. It sounds like the parking lot would be right across from the creek from us, essentially, and wanted to know about lighting. If they're going to have, just massive lighting that will just kind of light up the entire night, kind of thing. Jim had one question as well.
Yeah,
Hi there.
I was wondering about part or all of that area is in a floodplain, is that right?
Okay, so let me answer both of those questions together. So the lighting levels that we provide in these parking lots, it is not intended to be, it's certainly not lit to the standard that you would see a retail parking lot. So it's not lit like a Walmart parking lot. Okay. It's lit to safe levels, and it's lit to the city's standard, both of which are should be more than sufficient from a distance standpoint. And also we use full cutoff lenses. Those cutoff lenses don't project light beyond the fixture, behind the fixture. So we have the ability to control where that goes. In regards to the floodplain, I turned on my laser pointer here. The floodplain for Ralston Creek, the 100-year floodplain, and is these series of dashed lines that run through here. So we've stayed away from these lines. In fact, that's why we moved that driveway out. And then there's a little bit of floodplain line clear up here at this very north corner. But beyond that floodplain, Jim, there's actually a slope that comes up to the site where we would be out of the floodplain. So really no impact to the floodplain. In fact, we're working with the city. We've recognized that there's an opportunity to help make this stream flow a little bit better relative to some of the fencing that's out there. So we're looking to make some modifications out there that we've literally just discussed this week. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Aguilar is next.
Yes, thank you. Just one quick question. Why the tremendous amount of surface parking? Is that an indication of the number of employees that are in this building? This looks like a lot more parking for one building than would be typically needed. Thank you.
I'll start with the answer on that, and then Jill or others can respond. So in terms of the number of employees that work in this building, they actually all park in this smaller parking lot here at the south side of the building. They park their personal, they do their sorting, they exit and return home. The vans are a fleet of vans, and one of the reasons that you have a fair amount of parking here is because people bring their personal vehicles, they park in a space, and then they pick up a van. So they sort of use two spaces for their pickup. And while maybe I'll just stop there in terms of kind of its operations, but that's a few things to be aware of. Jill, did you want to expand on that at all?
No, that's exactly right. I guess the only other thing I would add is that, this, the facility is designed for the maximum number of van parking spaces that it could possibly need. So that includes factoring in, peak season, which would be around the holidays, for example, when delivery counts are higher. And so it factors that in, plus, as you said, essentially two vehicles, a personal and a van for each van that's leaving.
Did that answer your question there?
Yes, and my wife has one quick follow-up.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to second, a concern, potential concern about the lighting. And I'm glad to hear that it sounds like the city is thinking about using lights that will have a lower impact than maybe some of the really bright lights like at Walmart.
Okay.
But I just, so it's I just wanted to emphasize that I think, especially with what wildlife is still, going along that creek corridor, there's been a lot of development, so there's less of it, but we still have owls and all sorts of things at night. And to the extent that the city could consider lighting that has the least impact on that and just on the residents around, I would encourage that.
Very good. I think we've heard you well there. Let's go on to Mary.
Thank you. Again, I don't think I said before, but we live in Maple Valley in the subdivision, kind of just right across the little park there that you've got planned. And our concern is the amount of wildlife and the impact. And if you've done any studies on those, on the impact to the wildlife, because I disagree that there's less. I actually think that there's, on any given day, walking animals, walking dogs, you can see, foxes and coyotes and deer and bobcats and owls and hawks and all of those creatures that will certainly be impacted by not only the construction, but by the basically 24/7 light and noise and activity. So have you done studies, or what is your plan to try to have, this is even sounds silly to say it, but the least amount of impact, negative impact towards those creatures? And then also kind of subsequent related to that, what about noise? Because it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of activity, cars, vans, trucks, like everything going on 24/7. And that is a huge concern. Not only the light pollution, but noise pollution and just activity as far as busyness.
So, I don't know if Matt or Jill wants to take that relative to the environmental work that we had done.
Yeah, this is Jill. I'm glad to speak to that. We did, as part of our due diligence for the subject property, perform our environmental assessments that included critical species studies or surveys, and those have all come back clean. And so that's the extent of our due diligence that we've performed in that regard. In terms of lighting, a photometrics plan that really studies the foot candles that are projected from each light fixture will be included in our site plan package and reviewed by the city in terms of whether or not it meets the requirements of the city for cutoff fixtures, dark sky ordinances, or so, and things of that nature. So that will be a study that we're required to provide and have reviewed and approved by the city. And then in terms of noise, we do look at that very carefully. This facility is purposely, the building is put as far south onto the site as it would fit. And then the trucks, again, are limited to one side, the short side, also the east side of the building that faces out to adjacent industrial, so as to concentrate any sound sources resulting from semis, such as backup alarms, to that one area of the building and in the site. The van parking area really functions much like an auto parking lot, in the sense that those vans, they're going to pull into those spaces. They're going to be parked there. That's not an active loading area up in this van parking area.
Yeah, we would expect this parking lot to not be very noisy. Most of the activities happening right at the east side of the building and actually inside the building. So we've really limited the amount of noise that is generated in this project. Let me move on to Iris.
Sorry, can I just follow up really quick? Who did the wildlife study, and is that public information? Can we get a copy of that?
No.
Hello?
Jeremiah, were you trying to speak?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I mean, I guess I want to kind of clarify a little bit. It's not a wildlife study per se. So, with any annexation, we require the applicant to submit an environmental site assessment. So, part of that report, and they're really long reports. And answer your other question, it is public. But it's a large analysis of the site, which includes existing conditions. It includes, any type of environmental contamination. Oftentimes there is information included in them if there are any, large natural habitats on the site. If there's any, a lot of times it'll include information about, other wildlife in there. At this stage of the game, I'm not aware of any, major wildlife habitations that are on the site. But it is available to the public, if you there's a way that we can talk kind of offline for you to be able to access those. But actually, I'll say it here. All these plans can be viewed at arvadapermits.org. And you would search for this project under projects. There's projects and permits, you pick projects. And then there's a project number that's associated with it. And so for Project Indiana, it is D as in dog, A as in apple, 2020-0118.
And I'm going to scroll to those numbers.
There we go.
Those numbers are right here.
Thank you. And the 117 case, that's the separate case that's specific to Maple Valley Park.
All right. We have a question from Iris Housen.
Right. I have two questions. First of all, I'd like to know how many parking places there are there. And secondly, is this Walmart or Amazon?
Or UPS.
Or UPS, or who is it? Who is the client you have?
We'll get to the exact number here. So this site plan proposes so associate parking down here on the south end is 292. The van stalls between each of these different parking areas totals 896, and then there's 12 trailer parking stalls and 15 loading dock spaces.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
What about
And my second question?
Yes, this is Jill Marcotte. In terms of the user, we have not yet filed any site plan applications, so we're not disclosing the user. I will say it is a Fortune 100 company.
this?
A Fortune 100. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to Linda Brown, if you can unmute.
Yes, hello. I live in Maple Valley on 68th Place, and our house abuts against the trail back there. My question pertains to your stormwater drainage, your runoff. With well over 1,000 spaces, I'm a bit concerned about the stormwater runoff with respect to, I notice you have a detention pond. I'm just wondering about your plans for any treatment of runoff and how, because that's eventually going to go into the creek. So I would be interested to hear what you have to say.
Certainly, great question. So we will comply with Arvada's criteria for stormwater treatment and detention and release. It's very rigorous. It does a lot to reduce sediments into the creek. It does a lot to reduce the peak discharge into the creek. So let me go to the site plan here. Okay, so up here on the north end of the pond, so in the bottom of the pond, we have a large flat zone. This flat zone is set up to where when water comes into that pond, it gets 1 or 2 feet deep and it sits there and drains over a very specified period of time, which has been determined to be 40 hours, which what that does, Linda, it does a combination of drains it out fast enough that you don't get mosquitoes, but slow enough that all the sediments sit on the bottom of that pond and don't resuspend into the discharge. From here, we were actually going to tie into an existing city storm outfall in Fig Street that then discharges to an existing outfall in Ralston Creek that is a stable condition, and it actually outfalls clear over here past our site. So that's what we've worked out with the city on initial conversations. Again, they haven't even seen our drainage report yet. But this is how these are done throughout the metro area, and it has been a significant improvement, especially on the commercial side, to make sure that we have treated all of our stormwater before discharging into the creek. Linda, does that answer all of your questions?
Yes, thank you. And then who monitors that water that's discharged?
So the property owner is responsible through its ownership and maintenance program of those, and the city provides some guidelines and expectations of the property owners to do annual reporting and inspections and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? I think we've answered them all so far. Again, there's the overall property map. All right, Jeremiah, any other kind of closing words for neighbors?
Yeah, I'll just so in the meeting chat, I'll make sure I'll put in my contact information in case anybody wants to reach out to me offline. Other than that, like I kind of said before, so the annexation and rezoning requests, both of them will more than likely in the springtime have public hearings in front of the Planning Commission, the City Council. The Planning Commission is a recommendation or a recommending body. So at that hearing, they'll hear testimony from the developer as well as anybody from the public who wants to speak on the matter. And the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council. And then at the City Council public hearing, kind of same format, people from the public can speak on the matter, as well as the developers team. And then the City Council ultimately is the decision maker on the annexation and the rezoning. Once, or I should say rather, if that's been approved, the developer then needs to have the site plan process approved as well. And that's where we as the city look at everything related to development and making sure that it adheres to other zoning and engineering and other codes and standards. And that process is administrative, that we just do, I don't want to say over the counter, but over the counter just for layman's sake, but it's not really that quick and over the counter. It's an administrative process. So with the annexation and rezoning, there will be, you all will be notified just as you were for this neighborhood meeting. There's mailings that have to go out. They'll have to post signs on the property that give the date and the time of the hearing. Depending on where we are with COVID, it could be virtual, it could be kind of a hybrid virtual in person. Unfortunately, just unable to know those details at this time. That's pretty much all I have here. I put my contact information in the chat, 208987438. My email is my first initial J and last name, which is Bevo. That's B as in boy, E as in egg, B as in boy, O @arvada.org. And if there's any additional questions from the city's perspective, feel free to reach out to me.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you all for participating tonight. Great job with all the crazy virtual stuff. I think that went pretty well. Once I got off mute to start. Thank you all very much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.